welcome again. So just a few words before we start. Like last time I said, you know, I'm an Aikido teacher who practice Kenjutsu to improve my Aikido. I'm not a pure Kashima teacher. I don't have a license for teaching Kashima, but I've trained Kashima-Inspired, I call it Kashima-Inspired Kenjutsu for many years, mostly with Tissier Sensei and his students. Before that, I trained many years Aikikai. So I mostly do Kashima to improve my Aikido. So I don't have a personal interest to go into the complete Kashima tradition, but I just share what I do and try to explain why I do what I do. If you want to find more information about Kashima, I can strongly recommend this book, Legacies of the Sword, which is a really good book about Kashima tradition, if you're very interested. And also, I know that there's so much to explain and talk about. We chose in this series to focus on a few katas to give inspiration to people. We could spend a couple of hours trying to explain our cuts and why we do the cuts. We did not choose to do that because we thought it would be maybe more beneficial in this time of lockdown to share some katas that people can do. If you want to go into details, we need a lot more time and we have to focus differently. So the focus here is on the basic movements in these basic katas. So I know there's lots to discuss besides that, of course. So we will start, and I will change my headset. Check the sound.
Sounds good.
Okay, the sound is there.
Sounds very good.
Yeah.
Very clear.
Okay, good. Good. So I just have to lower this one down. Yes. So we will start, and what we'll do this time, as I said, we are focusing on the katas, and now the third series. And I do it the way I was taught it. I know there's a different order in the pure Kashima tradition, but I choose to do it the way I did it and learned it. We will repeat the first three that we did last time. And then we will do the last two. So there's 5 in the third series, 5 katas. Okay, so let's start. So let's start with the first kata in the third series. So Mats will attack. So he opens. Now, this position. Then from here, we explained the last time, he could enter here. I could also enter here. So what we do in this position, we create space with the cut and close the opening for both of us. So we neutralize the position. So from this creating space, we stay here. He will enter into the line, center line, and stop here. He comes with the ski straight in. And at the body contact, he turns the Ken. So he enters straight. What I do before he reached that place, he stops a little earlier. Stop. Here, I also enter into the center line and sweep his sword. And if I want, I can turn. Personally, I usually stay straight. So we do it with a little bit more action. So Mats is attacking.
change roles. Now I will be the uke. And in the Kashima tradition, very often the teacher is the uke. So I will attack. Hey! And the student has to learn to finish the kata. So it's very important to not come from the side, but to enter straight. So you draw with your little finger inside and enter for both of us, both the person attacking here, attacking from the center line, and the person defeating, making a little spiral movement, sweeping the sword and entering straight. The sweeping is one movement. It's not 1, 2. It's just one entering straight. So if Mats holds his sword here, my hand, if you come here, my hand is in front of his sword. My right hand, my first hand. The left hand is on the outside. So from this position here, I cut. Don't have your left hand in front of his sword, because you will go too far. So the right hand is in front, and then it's like a cut. From this axis here, I turn and enter in one action. So to exercise this movement here, if he sweeps my sword, here, turning around the wrist, coming back. So we can come a little closer. So you see my sword. Here, he sweeps my sword. I turn. My wrist is free. I turn back and come back. So this freedom of the joint is very important here. So even if I have my backhand on the sword here, it's very free. And the axis is the front hand. If I turn around the backhand in this case, my sword will move too much. So when he sweeps my sword, you can see from here, and coming back, inside again. So this is the way how I do this. Now, we look at the movement again. So I will attack. So this is very loose, very free. And I accept the movement. It's really important when he hits to accept the movement and sink down and hold your posture. Don't move, just accept. From this position, I could later on counter attack or do something. But when you lose, you accept the movement completely. So don't move around and try to escape the movement. And let it come to your center. So one more time. I attack, here, come back, and I make it ski, accepting movement, sinking down in my center. Hi, please try. Okay, so let's look at this spiral movement around the axis with the ski. So if I hold my sword here, so he sweep, maybe you come a little closer. So he sweeps my sword here. Bum. I can come back to this position. Now, can send his sword away. Then he comes back, moves my sword. It's like a fight for the middle line. So if he comes this way here, so he removes my sword. Bum. I remove his sword. He takes my sword off. So I'm here. Bum, 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 bum. You can do it here this way. So he holds his sword out here. Now he's on the axis. I will remove him from the axis. He removes me from the axis, and I remove him. So in action, it goes like this. 1, 2, 3. So please try this movement. One person hold the sword, the other one, remember your little finger, from your little finger, there, 1, 2, 3. Turning around this point. So I'll show it one more time more clear. So he's there, 1, 2, 3. Okay, please try. Okay, so we can show number one last time. So I will attack. So I want to say one also thing. We're a little bit limited of the space in the dojo, so we cannot express the movement fully as we would like to do. So I cannot be complete in the movement in the action because of the ceiling and the walls and everything. So we have to squeeze the form a little bit, so you know that. So anyway, I attack for number 1. Emptying, pushing back, and ski, and accept the movement, sinking down. Now, number 2. So in number 2, to explain some logic about this movement, when we enter here, both of us try to enter, then we have to change and stop because we see the sword. So I'm trying to enter to him, reach him. If he would not do anything, my movement would be straight to his head. But because I see his sword, I stop because I want to save my sword. And if I push here, he will come back. So I can't push, I just touch here. Now, from this position, he wants to reach my head. Because I give him a little opening here. So I give him an opening and he wants to reach my head. But I remove my head and give my wrist. So while I give the opening and he attacks, I remove my head and give the wrist. It's like a trap. And when he's in the trap, he looks for my head, my wrist, I hit his sword. So you bring him to your head, you remove your head and drop him to your wrist. So here, I give an opening, my head, my wrist, and step back. So my movement from here, I give an opening, give my head, remove, exchange my head for my wrist. And then in the moment he's just above my wrist, I sweep and go straight back. So please try this action. Okay, so let's look at this movement in slow motion when he removes his sword. So he opens. Now, coming to the entry. Now I give an opening, he tries to reach my head, he reaches my wrist, and then remove the sword. So from this position, he reached my head, this, and yeah. So just before I sweep his sword, he brings his sword back. So slowly. So I give an opening here and there. Well, one more from this position. Opening, bam, bam. So I try to trick him. I try to trick him to my head, then my wrist. Then he tricks me, removes his sword because he's the teacher. And then he enters and I go back and I accept the movement. So we do it one more time slowly. I'm attacking. So when he goes to my wrist, I sweep, he removes his sword. When he removes his sword, just do this. Don't bring your arms up. Just this movement to save your sword and enter. Okay, try. Okay, good. So we will move into number 3. So we are repeating this now. So number 3 here. I try to enter, he stops me. Now, I see an opening on the other side here. It's like if you're standing here, maybe like this. So I see an opening here. Wow. And when I enter, he closed this opening and I have to come back and accept it. Actually, this movement is the same like in the number 1 kata or number 2. It's in the number 1, because in the number 1, we come here and we close the opening and create space. So we go back. We have to protect our space. So we do this with the kesagiri. Now, instead of coming with the kesagiri, we stay inside. But it's the same idea of protecting the space here. I want to enter, he wants to enter, and we neutralize the position. So we're turning around our axis and stay on the same line. Now comes a little bit strange movement. Because I would maybe logically think I would go to his back here. Yes. Oh, if I go to your back here, yes. But I could, of course, it's possible. But in the kata here, you're studying something that his balance is very weak right in front of his feet. When his feet are here, his balance is not good here. He has much better position here. So I draw him here with my movement. So we are in this position here. His line is to me now. Now, I will go over there and I will bring his sword here, with me. Now, he's inside and I cut him. So I exaggerate this movement now, but I want to explain the feeling I have. So when I go out, I draw him here and his feet become very square like this. Now I cut his shoulder. Later on, he will reverse this movement. But it's very important to understand this movement. So if you are from here, you go back, I attack here. Now I see an opening on the other side here. He closed that opening, so we neutralize the position. Now I'm going to move in front of him, in front of his 2 feet out here, and draw him with me and cut his shoulder here. So please try this movement. The cut is from your feet together, almost standing on your toes, hanging in and reaching in and cutting straight on like a horizontal line. Okay. Okay, so let's look at the continuation of this. So I attack here, then I see an opening on the other side there. Now I move in front of him to draw his sword with me to create an opening. He's tricked by this, but he knows what's happening, so he turns and catches my sword and enters. So one more time from this feeling here, I cut on the horizontal and he turns. What he's doing, he's exchanging his shoulder for his sword. So he draws his shoulder back and replaces it with his sword. And it's like a spiral movement. Stop. Oh, sorry. His sword is turned this way. Now he twists it back and boom. And he really has to dig a hole for my hip. My hip has to go with the sword. If my hip doesn't go with the sword, I'll come back. So he has to dig a hole for my hip so he can enter. Okay, please try. Okay, so we will leave number 3 for the moment and continue with number 4. So number 4 looks like this in the basic form. I'm the attacker again. So I enter, he goes out to the side and sweeps my sword, enters directly. So this movement he's doing with the back of the sword, it's in one circle. It's not 1, 2. It's a circle 1 action. And if I'm standing here, I'm doing what he's doing. So I'm in this position. I go a little bit forward here, keep the sword and keep my center line. I just place my leg there. Then I go out. Now I use the back of the sword, sweep and bam. Now the whole weight of my leg comes into my sword. So my movement from here, I stay, I don't change anything here. I don't disturb this connection, but I prepare my foot. Then I move out, sweep, and enter. And the sweeping movement is really with your hip. So don't have your weight on your front leg and do this. You have your weight on your back leg, the leg that becomes your back leg. You go out, you sweep, and enter. The weight from your hip is in your sword. Okay, please try. Okay, so let's look at this movement for a moment. Mats, if you just stand here, just to show one thing before we move on. So if you come with this here. One thing, when you enter from this position, don't cut. Don't cut. Don't use this part of your sword. Sweep. So you use, it's like your hand would go like this and come back. But don't cut. Don't turn and cut. So use the back of your sword and it's one action. So I will attack and Mats will show the movement again. So. Maybe you can hear on the sound, it's one action, one sweep. And he's using his front leg to put weight on his sword while he enters. Hi, please try. Okay, so let's come back and we will show now a more advanced way to do this. Probably you will have to work on the ones we just showed first for a while, where you enter here, go out to the side, you sweep and come back. So now the advanced way would be to not leave the line, to come here and go straight inside without moving out and back on the line. But to prepare that movement, you need to learn this properly. Now, if we just show for inspiration, and maybe some people can do it. So Mats will show how he moves with the same movement. So I come here, goes inside, and he walks just straight, but he spirals with his sword and sweeps my sword. But now he's not losing time on going offline and coming back inside again. That's a good exercise, but later on, you don't have time for that. And the idea, if you look closer, if his sword, no, I'm Mats now, I'm going to change. So first, we did like this. We went offline, bam, here and back. Now, if I go straight from this position, what I will do is pass his sword here. When my sword is the same as his, I can pass inside. Now I'm safe. So here. So he's here. When I move inside, I enter inside his sword by aligning my sword to his sword. Now I'm not safe. Bam, here. Now I'm safe. So this is much more difficult, but it's interesting. So if I'm here now, instead of going offline, I go straight. Bam, bam, bam. So if I show in some action, little slower action, so I come here, I go around and in. So just like this. Entering inside, aligning my sword to his sword, and stepping in. But when you do this, don't fall into your partner. You have to know when to stop. So when I'm here, I'm entering now, but then don't fall into your partner. Then you have to stop. So I show one more time in little action. Here, we come here, I go inside and bam, and stop. When I stop, stay. Now, he should not easily be able to punch me or reach me. If he can touch here, or if he can punch, I'm not in a good distance. So I should have a distance where I'm safe. So even though you pass through his sword here, bam, you have to stop here, remove his sword and stay. This has to be done in action, of course. Okay, please try. And if this is too difficult, do the first version. Okay, so we will repeat number 4 one time. Now the straight version again, Mats will show it. So I'm attacking, so now, so he never left the line. If he comes straight in front of the camera, yeah, be careful with the camera. So we have to limit our movement. We come here, he turns, bam. So he never went off the line. So from this direction here, there, bam, bam. Okay, now, number 5. So in number 5, there is a takeaway, but we will skip that because of the lockdown. But normally he would put his hand between my hands and take my sword. I can show it one time later, but now instead of doing that, he will just move me back. We'll show how we do it. So I attack here. So I enter. Now, we both want to enter, but we both create space with the kesagiri cut. Now, I come inside. This second attack, it's like a cut to his head. If he doesn't do anything, I'm coming inside here. Just, sorry, from this position. I'm entering with a cut from down up into his side, like a yokomen, but from down. His answer to this movement is the same. So I stop. I cannot go further, because if I push further, he kills me. So I feel his sword and I stop. Now, from this position, we both start to push and enter here. And because we need space, we have to rise. We cannot stay down. So we enter, both tries to enter. But what happens is we remove the contact from the sword to the wrist. From this position here, he turns inside, and now he will just remove me, so like this. In the real form, he will take my sword. It's a takeaway. You can just touch and show what the position is. So I will attack here, bam. We create some space. We start to push, but we both go up. Now he enters and he grabs my sword. But instead of grabbing the sword now, we can just make, he sits down. It's like he creates a fence and he moves from his lower body with a hand to my chest. So let's try that movement. Number 5. Okay, so just want to explain this movement here from this position here. When we enter here, don't hang on the sword. You cannot put pressure on the sword, because if I put pressure on the sword, he releases. So it's a very gentle touch, but we try to play with the distance. And both of us see how close we can come. I mean, here, he could try to cut me and I could try to cut him. So we are in this axis, but both of us have the same problem. So we try to come around. But in this position, he puts his elbow inside my hands. So in this position here, from rising up here with a touch. Now, I would like to cut here, he would like to cut here, but we both close this opportunity. So he turns his hand inside my elbow and drops. And I go back, accepting the movement. As I said, it's a sword takeaway, but we skip that part right now. So we will show again. I am attacking, showing, stepping back, creating space, coming into the axis, and here. show this direction. So I attack. Bam. We create some space. Now we touch and go into the axis. He enters into my hand, into the center line, drops down. It's like a weight falling on my sword and my arms. So one last time. I try to enter. We stop. We create some space. Now the swords touch and we slide up, connecting the wrist. Turn the sword a little bit, connect the wrist. Now his hand comes inside and he takes my position. Okay, please try. Okay, so we have a little more time. We will show another solution for number 5 without grabbing. There will be some touch, I know, but please keep your breath. Don't breathe out when you do these movements. Hold your breath. And Mats will show another solution for number 5, which is without sword takeaway. So I attack. And we create some space. We come together and he enters and takes the space straight. When we come inside, he turns this, he exchanged the sword for the wrist. Then he rise and drop. It's like a cut. He just enters. So I'll show it one more time. So he rises above my sword, and when he drops, he turns. He turns his hand and comes into a showman cut. So please try. Okay, so Mats will show one more time. I attack. Hey. Hey. So a little something about these different kamais and these positions here. So if we have a connection here with the sword, this is a good distance for us. I mean, I wouldn't like to be further away and not closer. If we want to come closer, we have to change our swords some way. We cannot just step forward. So one way to change the sword is here. This is the position we used in this. From this, like a kamai coming here, this is the position. The hands are not on the center line, they're offline. This position here, you could also, like here, we can touch the hand. So if I stand here, maybe just here, so like that, my hand is down here, offline. It's not inside here, it's here. And this is the 1/3 position here. Now, this 1/3 is where we connect here. This is between our eyes here. So his hand is offline, my hand is offline. So if we are in this distance, we cannot have our hands here. It doesn't work in this distance. So because we have this distance, we have to find a solution for our swords. If we change the distance now, we go out, we can bring the sword down. We could also have another solution, the one we showed, be careful with the ceiling. But this one, when we come here, we remove the sword, we can come even closer here. Coming up, we can turn here. So we have a solution for our sword because of the distance. Now, if we want to change the distance, we also change the sword. But from this position here, it's very important that you don't have your hands here. You're here. So the position we used in this 3rd series is here. The hands are out of the line here. You don't come here and enter here. So from here, you come and bow. It's a deep kesagiri cut here. Continue this line. Okay, so we will end for today. Time is out, and we will bow out.
Again, much gratitude to all of you for being here, and to Jan and Mats Sensei so much.
Thank you, Brian Sensei, for arranging this, and thank you, Mats Sensei, for joining. And as I said, this came up because I talked to Brian Sensei, and he needed some inspiration. And we thought, okay, we share some katas. There's lots and lots to explain about how to cut, how to hold the hands and everything, but that could be a whole series in itself. So we found the priority now to share some kata movements from the 3rd Kashima series. As I said, we're a little bit limited about the space and everything, and about the technology, so we cannot express the movements fully. And it's really a challenge to teach Kenjutsu and maneuver all the technical stuff at the same time. So I don't think I did my best movements, but we do what we can with the situation we have. So I hope it can give you some inspiration to continue praying. And I think one important thing is when we do Kenjutsu, it's very important to have an idea. Why am I doing this? What is my partner doing? And why are we relating in this way? kata is an agreement. So we agree on something. And as I said in the Kashima, something I really like is that the teacher is the uke most of the time. So the teacher creates openings for the student to learn and to study and to enter and win. So as a teacher, I give him these opportunities to find the solution. And I really like that way of studying Kenjutsu. So it's like really about the cooperation and a study together and an agreement in the movement. Then you can, of course, do free fighting, free whatever, but these are kata forms, agreement forms that we study now. And then you go deeper and deeper into the agreement, you know, trying to understand the agreement between us. What is my agreement? What is his agreement?
All the kata of 5 kata we do. When we do the kesagiri together, always we make it, my hand not in the center, in the 5 kata, always.
It's a good question. And it's depending on which moment you look at. Because at the entry, of course, at the entry in this, you're trying to reach his head. So you're trying to extend. And of course, my hands are not here because I'm trying to extend. Why my hands go here is because his sword drops in front of my sword and I need space for my hands. But my initial attack is, of course, to his head, and my hands are here on the center line. But I cannot keep them there because his sword makes me change. So I change the situation according to what is happening, and that's why I drop my hands. So I enter here, and then I see his sword and I sink. The sinking and dropping is because of his sword. If his sword was not there, I would enter with a cut and my hands would be more on the line. So of course it's easy to see, okay, we just put the swords together, but that's not really what's happening. If I'm attacking, I'm trying to extend and reach in, and I see his sword and I adjust my sword to his sword. So that's why my hands sink, and we end up in this position, which is a position for the next step. Anyway, thank you for listening and joining, and thank you, Brian Sensei, for organizing.
Thank you again, Jan Shihan.